They told you African masks were just tribal art, strange, exotic carvings made by primitive hands to decorate the walls of museums. They told you these masks were relics of savagery, worn by backward people who danced for rain and feared the dark. They sold them as souvenirs, mounted them under glass, and stripped them of the power that once made kings tremble and spirits rise. What they never told you, what they deliberately hid, is that African masks are not decorations. They are doors. They are keys to other realms. They are living technologies crafted by the hands of the initiated to summon gods, to speak with the dead, to restore balance when the world breaks. Why did they lie? Why did they reduce something so sacred into mere ornament? Because if the world knew the truth, they would see that Africa was not just the land of drums and dust. It was and still is a place of spiritual intelligence, ancestral science, and divine communication. They knew that African masks are not mere wooden pigment. They are spirits, incarnated, invoked, alive. They knew that each mask is born through ritual, carved only with permission, awakened with offerings, and worn not for spectacle, but for transformation. A man who wears the sacred mask does not perform. He disappears. The spirit takes over. The voice is no longer his. The movement is no longer his. He becomes the mask, and the mask becomes God. But none of this was taught. The missionaries feared it. The colonizers outlawed it. The collectors exploited it. And the world forgot that masks were once the face of justice, the face of the ancestor, the face of the god. They forgot that when the mask enters the village, it is not entertainment and it is law. It is truth. It is healing or punishment or prophecy, depending on the spirit it carries. They forgot that masks are not worn. They are invoked. This is not a story about art. This is a story about power. The power to remember what was buried, to reclaim what was stolen, to see the face of the sacred again. Today the mask speaks, and this time we will not look away. A mask, in African spirituality, is not a costume. It is not a disguise. It is not something to hide the face. It is something that reveals truth. A mask is a vessel, a spirit house, a sacred portal carved with intention, activated by ritual, and worn not to entertain, but to transform. To wear a mask is to cease being human. It is to become something other, something older, something greater. The mask is not made in haste. It begins with vision, often a dream, a divination, or a message from the ancestors. The carver is not just an artist, he is a spiritual technician. He must find the right tree, one that agrees to be cut. There are trees that hold memory, trees that speak, trees that refuse. The wood is blessed. Offerings are made. Sometimes animals are sacrificed. Not for death, but for exchange. Life for access. Then the carving begins, not from imagination, but from instruction. Every line, every color, every animal shape, every opening for eyes or mouth holds meaning. The mask is coded. It speaks in symbols that only the initiated understand. There are masks for birth, for death, for planting, for rain, for war, for peace, for justice, for initiation, for judgment, for protection, for reconciliation. The mask is not passive. It acts. It calls spirits, contains spirits, or channels them. It can heal a village or expose a lie. It can bless a child or drive away a curse. Some masks are used once. Others are passed down through generations, guarded by secret societies, hidden in sacred groves or shrine houses, never to be seen by the uninitiated. When the mask appears, the air changes. The drummers shift their rhythm, the elders stand, the children go silent. It is not a man walking in costume. It is the spirit walking. The mask does not perform. It announces. It declares. It remembers. It becomes the face of the divine. This is why the mask cannot be touched casually. This is why it cannot be worn by outsiders. This is why it was feared by those who did not understand it. Because the mask is not a symbol. It is presence. It is the invisible made visible. It is the language of the ancestors carved in wood and brought to life by breath, rhythm, and belief. To the uninitiated, a mask may seem like an object, carved wood, painted lines, animal forms, human features. But to those who know, the mask is not an object. It is a being. It is not a likeness of a spirit. It is the spirit. In African spirituality, the mask is more than symbol. It is an embodiment, a spiritual vessel that houses the essence of a force, an ancestor, a deity, or a power from the invisible world. The wood does not become sacred when it is carved. It is sacred because of what it contains. The spirit behind the mask chooses its form. It reveals itself in dreams, through oracles, in trance, or through the silent intuition of the carver. No mask is designed by chance. Every curve, every color, every element carries spiritual meaning. A long face may reflect a spirit of wisdom. A mask with horns may channel a protective force. A split face may embody the union of male and female energy. Red may signify war or danger. White, the realm of ancestors. Black, the mysteries of night and the unseen. Once the mask is carved, it must be awakened. This is not simply a dedication, it is a summoning. The elders, diviners, or priests prepare the mask through ritual. It may be bathed in sacred herbs, consecrated with libation, blessed with ash or blood. Drums are played, chants are sung, and the spirit is invited in. It is no longer just a mask. It is now a house, a shrine, a living presence. And from this point forward, it is treated with reverence. It is stored in sacred spaces. It is spoken to, federal, honored. There are some masks that are never seen by the public. They are worn only during secret ceremonies, only at night, only when the veil between worlds is thin. To look upon them without permission is not just taboo, it is dangerous. Because the spirit does not forgive mockery. There are spirits that bless. There are spirits that punish. And the mask holds both. Even the act of wearing the mask is sacred. The one chosen to bear it undergoes cleansing, sometimes isolation, sometimes fasting. Because once the mask is worn, the person is no longer present. The spirit speaks. The body moves, but the will is not human. This is possession, not in fear, but in sacred union. A temporary merging of worlds. To understand the mask is to understand that Africa has always known what others forgot, that spirit can wear flesh, and that wood can hold breath. The mask is not dead. It is alive, and it remembers everything. There is a moment just before the drum breaks the silence when the village holds its breath. The elders nod, the air thickens, the spirit is near. And then it happens. The mask appears. Not as a man in disguise, but as a force, walking. As power embodied. This is not theater. This is not dance. This is possession. In African spirituality, when the mask is worn, it is not the performer who moves. It is the spirit that moves through him. The mask comes alive. Before this moment, a long preparation unfolds. The wearer of the mask is not chosen casually. He is selected by the elders, approved by the spirits, and trained by initiation. He must be cleansed, sometimes through herbs, other times through fasting, sometimes through painful rites that test his body and spirit. He learns the songs, the movements, the laws. He learns how to carry the mask without collapsing beneath its weight. Not the physical weight, but the spiritual pressure of channeling something not of this world. The rituals vary across cultures, but the essence remains the same. In some villages, the masked figure enters from the forest, the liminal space between the world of humans and spirits. He arrives with drummers at his heels, dust rising beneath his feet, the women ululating, the children hiding behind their mothers. In that moment, he is not a man. He is Egungun, the ancestor. He is Kanaga, the spirit bridge. He is Du, the lawgiver. His eyes do not see as yours do. His voice is not his own. He has been taken. The drumming is not just music, it is language. It calls the spirit down. The chanting is not performance, it is command. The mask dances, but the dance is not improvisation. Every step has meaning. Every gesture is coded. He may bless a child, heal a sick body, punish a thief, or announce a prophecy. The community does not question it. They know, this is not him. This is the spirit speaking. The ritual may last minutes or hours. Sometimes it extends for days. There are times when the wearer collapses from exhaustion. There are times when he must be carried away, his body trembling, his spirit emptied. There are times when, once the mask is removed, he remembers nothing. Because possession is not performance, it is transformation. And for the initiates who witness it, for the boys who sit in the circle, eyes wide, hearts pounding, it is the beginning of a new life. The mask is their teacher, their judge, their guide. In the secret rituals, they are told what the public will never know. They learn the names of the spirits, the taboos of the tribe, the medicines, the myths, the meaning behind every motion. To wear the mask is a privilege, but to understand it is a path, a sacred calling. When the mask comes alive, the boundary between worlds dissolves. Time bends. The divine enters the dust of the earth. And in that moment, no one doubts the spirit is real. In the heart of Yoruba land, when the Egungun appears, the village trembles with reverence. The Egungun is not a man. It is not costume. It is the spirit of the ancestors, returning to walk among the living. Layered in cloth, colors, amulets, feathers, and sacred symbols, the Egungun spins, dances, chants. It blesses, rebukes, and restores. It may walk directly to a grieving widow and whisper her husband's name. It may declare judgment in a dispute that no human court could resolve. The Yoruba understand, the mask is not art, it is the ancestral court itself. To dishonor the Egungun is to dishonor the bloodline, the family, the soul. Further north, in the rocky cliffs of Mali, the Dogon people perform the Dama ceremony, one of the most intricate and spiritually rich funeral rituals in the world. At its heart are the Kanaga and Siriji masks. The Kanaga mask, with its double-barred cross, represents the connection between the heavens and the earth. The Sirij, towering over 12 feet high, is worn by young initiates who climb into the mask as if ascending to the spirit world. When these masks appear, accompanied by chants and the beat of sacred drums, the spirit of the deceased is guided from the human realm into the ancestral one. Without the mask, the soul cannot transition. Without the ritual, the balance is broken. In Côte d'Ivoire, among the Bole people, the Goli mask takes center stage, a circular face with horns, representing both male and female energies. It appears during times of fertility, celebration, and healing. The mask is playful, beautiful, and joyful, but it is also sacred. It reminds the people that balance between male and female, light and dark, body and spirit, is not just an idea. It is law. Among the Bois of Burkina Faso, the plank masks stretch wide like birds in flight. These are not masks of ancestors, but of elemental forces, spirits of rain, thunder, earth, and trees. Their geometric patterns are ancient codes passed down through painting and dance. When they appear, they bring blessing or warning. They do not speak. They move. They speak through motion and pattern. Their presence is not social. It is cosmic. In Guinea and Sierra Leone, the San Society, an all-female spiritual order, uses the Sowe mask. It is worn by women only, during rites of passage that initiate girls into womanhood. The mask is smooth, serene, with closed eyes and elaborate hair, reflecting beauty, wisdom, and humility. Here, the divine feminine is not feared or hidden. It is revered, trained, and honored. The Senufo, the Bamana, the Fang, each people has their mask. Each mask has its law, its story, its taboo. The same object, wood, paint, cloth, becomes 1,000 different doors, depending on the people, the land, the spirit it channels. No two masks are ever the same, because no two spirits are. What unites them all is belief, not in fantasy, but in the unseen, in memory, in the power of rhythm, form, and breath to carry spirit across the veil. The cultures of the mask did not survive by accident. They survived because the people never forgot that the mask is not a performance. It is a pact, a contract with the sacred. When the colonizers arrived, they did not understand what they saw. Or perhaps they understood too well, and that frightened them. They saw people dancing in dust, their bodies moving with rhythm, their faces hidden behind carved wood that made children cry and elders kneel. They heard drums that shook the earth and chants that seemed to bend the wind, and they saw something that defied their control. A people in conversation with the divine, without their books, without their churches, without their language. A people whose power flowed not from paper, but from memory, from spirit, from the mask. So they labeled it evil. They called the sacred demonic. They called the spiritual savage. They burned the shrines. They imprisoned the priests. They banned the festivals. They tore the masks from their altars and sold them in markets. Masks that once spoke with the voice of gods were mounted on walls in European galleries and described as primitive art. The names of the spirits were removed. The rituals were erased. The meanings, the myths, the codes, all buried. What was once alive became a dead object for tourists to admire without understanding. In Paris, Berlin, London, New York, sacred masks now sit behind glass, stripped of context, silenced. The Egungun who once delivered justice is now a colorful textile piece. The Kanaga who once guided souls is now a curious geometric form. The Sande mask, once carried with songs of sisterhood, is now discussed in sterile academic tones, without mention of the girls it blessed or the women it empowered. And as the West celebrated African art, it continued to deny the spirit behind the form. This theft was not just physical, it was spiritual. It severed generations from their roots. It taught African children to fear the very masks their ancestors once revered. It told them their culture was backward, their traditions were demonic, their spiritual systems had no value. And in doing so, it tried to kill something sacred. Not just the mask, but the memory. But the mask remembers, even behind glass, even in silence, even when mislabeled and misrepresented, it waits. Because the spirit never left. It was never art. It was never primitive. It was never entertainment. It was a god. And gods do not die in museums. They wait to be remembered. The mask is returning, not as fashion, not as trend, but as spirit, as memory. Across Africa and its diaspora, a new generation is rediscovering what was hidden. Artists, dancers, carvers, scholars, spiritual seekers. They are not copying the old. They are remembering it, reclaiming it, restoring it. What was once feared is now honored. What was called primitive is now called divine. In Nigeria, Egungun festivals are no longer whispered traditions but public celebrations, streamed online, drawing crowds of thousands. Young men who once felt shame for the old ways now carry the mask with pride. In Mali, Dogon youth are studying the Dhamma rites, learning the sacred steps, restoring the balance of the death rituals lost during years of war and silence. In Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, mask makers are returning to the ancient codes, carving not for tourists, but for spirits. They consult diviners. They seek permission. They build altars. But the revival is not limited to the continent. In Brazil, Cuba, Trinidad, the US, and the UK, descendants of Africa are dancing the sacred rhythms, wearing the sacred faces, and calling on the gods behind the wood. The Orisha are rising again. The ancestors are speaking through drums, dreams, and vision. The diaspora is no longer disconnected. It is remembering, not through textbooks, but through vibration. Even the digital world is changing. Creators are making films, animations, and documentaries that tell the real stories of the mask, not as exotic artifacts, but as portals to ancestral wisdom. Fashion designers are invoking sacred patterns with reverence. Musicians are blending mask symbolism into their visuals, not as decoration, but as declaration. The spirit is evolving, but it is not losing its power. The mask is not trapped in the past. It is walking into the future. This revival is not romanticism. It is restoration. It is resistance. It is the spirit world reminding us that you cannot silence the ancestors. That every time the mask is carved, a story is reborn. That every time the mask dances, the world is corrected. The mask is not just returning to the stage, it is returning to the soul. The mask has always been watching, even when we looked away, even when we forgot its name, even when we feared what our grandparents once honored. It never left. It was waiting, in the shrine that became a museum, in the story that became a secret, in the dance that became forbidden. But now, the ancestors are whispering again. The mask is moving again. The spirit is speaking again. To understand African masks is not to study art. It is to encounter presence. It is to hear the voice of your lineage carved into form. It is to feel the rhythm of truth in wood, cloth, feather, and fire. These are not symbols. They are vessels. These are not relics. They are relationships. The mask is not meant to be admired. It is meant to be honored. It is not meant to be worn by the curious. It is meant to be carried by the chosen. And now the world is listening, slowly, cautiously, but deeply, because something sacred is rising. It is no longer about performance. It is about power. The power to remember what the colonizers tried to erase. The power to reconnect with the gods who still wait in the forests. The power to become again what we never truly stopped being. A people of spirit, of order, of truth. So the next time you see a mask, do not look at the surface. Look into the eyes. Look beyond the color, the pattern, the style. Ask, what spirit lives here? What memory breathes here? Whose voice is trying to return? Because the mask is not entertainment. It is a mirror. And when you face it, you may just remember the face of the ancestor behind your own. If this story awakens something ancient inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it, subscribe, and pass it on to someone who needs to remember what the mask still knows.